Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into something that, well, affects everyone.
Absolutely.
Those nagging thoughts, urges, feelings, the ones that seem to pull you off track.
Yeah, the ones that feel like they take over sometimes.
We're calling them deceptive brain messages. And here's the big takeaway right up front. These thoughts, they aren't you.
That's the absolute core idea. We really need to get this distinction between your brain and your mind.
Okay, so the brain is, what? More automatic.
Kind of. Think of it like the hardware running old programs, focused on survival, immediate feelings, habits.
And the mind.
The mind is more like, well, your conscious self, using insight, your values, aiming for what you really want. They're a team, ideally.
But sometimes the brain sends out static, bad signals.
Exactly. Misleading signals, deceptive messages, and they happen constantly.
Our source, you are not your brain, it gives some really relatable examples, doesn't it?
It does, like Ed, who's just overwhelmed by anxiety.
Or Sarah, pulling away when she feels depressed.
Yeah, right. And Abby caught in that loop of constant worry.
Steve using alcohol for stress.
All of them, essentially, being run by these automatic brain responses. Unconsciously, mostly.
Leading them places they don't actually want to be.
Precisely. But here's the empowering part.
Which is?
You get to define who you want to be, your true self. And you can align your actions with that.
So it's not about just wishing the bad thoughts away.
No, definitely not. It's about changing your daily choices consciously. It often means pushing back against your brain's biology.
Especially in that habit center the book mentions. Like worn out paths.
Exactly like that. Easy to follow, but maybe leading downhill.
Okay, so our mission today, diving into this book, is to really unpack these deceptive messages.
Understand what they are, how they work.
And really hammer home that idea. You are not just your brain's activity.
That's the goal.
All right, let's get into it. What does this cycle actually look like?
Day to day. Well, it typically starts with the message itself popping up.
A thought, an urge.
Could be a thought, an impulse, even a craving. And then comes the distress.
Distress, like
Yeah.
physical, emotional.
Both. Often. Your heart might pound, chest tightens, you feel that pull. Or emotionally, it's fear, sadness, anger,
That uncomfortable feeling.
Yes. And it feels urgent, unpleasant.
And naturally, you just want it to stop right now.
Exactly. That's the human instinct. Get rid of the discomfort.
And that leads to
An automatic reaction. Usually something ingrained, habitual.
something that gives quick relief, maybe?
Often, yeah. But it's usually not helpful long term. Sometimes it's even harmful.
Like Ed avoiding things that make him anxious.
Perfect example. Or Sarah isolating herself when she feels low. Those are automatic escape hatches.
Driven by the need to stop the discomfort from the brain message.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's the reaction to the discomfort, not the feeling itself, that's often the trap.
That's a huge part of it, yes.
Which brings up another key idea from the book. The difference between emotional sensations and true emotions. Can you break that down?
Yeah, this is really crucial. An emotional sensation, as the book puts it, is a feeling directly sparked by one of these deceptive messages.
Okay, give me an example.
All right. Say you feel guilty for taking a break, even though you've worked hard. That guilt, probably an emotional sensation,
Why?
because it might be linked to a false belief, like I should always be busy. It's a feeling rooted in a distorted thought, not necessarily reality.
Okay, so feeling like you're not good enough because your brain's feeding you that line,
Yeah.
even if there's no actual reason?
Exactly that. Now contrast that with true emotions.
Which are?
Appropriate reactions to real events, sadness when you lose someone, fear when you're actually in danger. Those are natural, healthy.
Okay.
The danger with the emotional sensations is they can make us act weirdly, like Sarah hiding from friends who could help.
Or someone eating or drinking to numb a feeling based on a lie the brain told them?
You got it.
Wow. So telling the difference is vital. Step one, almost.
It really is.
Now, the book talks about brain wiring, repetition. How does that connect to these messages and habits?
It's fascinating, really. Every time you repeat an action, good or bad, you strengthen the brain circuits for it.
Like digging a groove deeper.
Exactly. The brain learns, okay, this is important, and makes it easier to do it again. It starts prompting the thoughts, urges, the whole package to keep that behavior going.
And the brain doesn't care if it's actually good for us.
Not inherently, no. It just reinforces what we consistently do.
So back to Ed avoiding, Sarah isolating, Abby worrying, Steve drinking. Every time they do that, they're essentially practicing, making it more automatic.
Precisely. They're strengthening those specific neural pathways, making those behaviors the default setting, easier to slip into next time.
The brain gets really efficient at those unhealthy routes.
Very efficient.
Okay, that sounds a bit bleak, like we're stuck.
Ugh.
But then the book introduces the wise advocate. What's that?
The wise advocate. It's a really hopeful concept. Think of it as your inner compass.
Like an inner guide.
Yeah, a compassionate guide, the part of you that sees your true self, your values, your potential, your worth. It's kind, supportive.
Okay. And how does the mind use this?
The mind, your conscious self, integrates the wise advocate's view. It uses your morals, your understanding, your awareness
To make better choices.
to make choices that align with your long-term well-being, guided by that inner wisdom, not just the brain's immediate demands.
So brain says, feel good now. Wise advocate says, what truly matters.
That's a good way to put it.
Now, neuroplasticity, the brain changing, that's huge here, right?
Absolutely fundamental. The brain isn't fixed. It can reorganize itself based on experience.
And self-directed neuroplasticity. So that's us taking the wheel.
It is. It's about intentionally focusing your attention to rewire your brain the way you want it to be wired.
The book uses Connie's stroke recovery story. Tell us about that.
It's incredibly powerful. Connie had a stroke, lost use of her left hand. Initially, she wasn't doing intense therapy for it.
So no change.
Well, neuroplasticity was happening, but maybe not helpfully. Her progress stalled. But then she started focusing intensely on her therapy goals, really working that left side.
And that's self-directed neuroplasticity.
Yes, that focused effort started rewiring her brain. She regained significant control, even got her thumbs moving independently, which was amazing.
Wow.
The key insight isn't just that the brain can change, but that passivity works against you. Intentional focus drives positive change.
That focus sounds crucial. And it seems like having meaningful goals fuels that focus. Connie wanted to tie a snake in a pillowcase.
Chuckle slightly. Yeah, it sounds odd, but it was deeply meaningful for her. She loved snakes, worked with them. That task needed both hands working together.
So it was a personal, powerful motivator.
Exactly. Like Viktor Frankl talked about, having those future goals gives you purpose, resilience.
Right. And the book contrasts her goals, independence, family, church, with things like status or money.
Yeah, suggesting those intrinsic goals tied to personal meaning are more sustaining when things get tough. External validation goals might be less robust.
That makes sense. That intrinsic drive keeps you going through the hard work of rewiring.
It really does.
Okay, this is starting to connect. But there's this paradox of desire thing.
Yeah.
Wanting to feel better too much can backfire. How?
It's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? Research shows effort helps more effort, better results. Usually. But a really strong desire to feel better without putting in the work, that can actually make things worse.
How so?
Focusing intensely on wanting to escape the bad feeling without actually, doing the steps to change the underlying patterns just leads to frustration, feeling stuck.
Like trying to force yourself to be happy.
Exactly. The harder you try just to feel different without changing behavior, the more elusive it seems.
The book asks you to think about when desire let you down. Yeah, something to ponder.
Definitely.
Okay, let's swing back to attention. Attention density. What's that about?
Simply put, it's where your mental spotlight is pointing. And the book stresses your attention shapes your brain. Literally.
So I let my attention get sucked into negative thoughts.
You're reinforcing those pathways, watering those weeds, so to speak.
But if I actively choose to focus on something constructive,
You're doing self-directed neuroplasticity. You're rewiring for the better, building pathways aligned with your true self.
it's about being the director of your own attention, not just a passive audience member.
Beautifully put. Yes.
What about willpower then? Can't we just power through these deceptive messages?
Well, the book argues probably not effectively, not by willpower alone.
Why not?
Because these messages, these urges, they often bubble up automatically from the brain, outside direct conscious control. Trying to just suppress them head on, it's exhausting and often fails, leads to feeling defeated.
So if brute force willpower isn't the answer, what is? This brings us to free won't, right? Benjamin Livet's idea.
Yes, Libet's work. It's really insightful. It suggests that, okay, maybe the brain initiates the urge to act, that first impulse, but you, the conscious mind, have the power to say, no, that's free won't, or veto power.
So the brain might shout, eat the cake. But I can choose not to pick up the fork.
Exactly. The thought, the urge, the craving, it might grab your attention automatically. You didn't necessarily choose that.
Right.
But you do choose what you do next. You can veto the unhelpful action.
That feels much more doable than trying to stop the thought itself. It's about controlling the action.
Precisely. That's where your power lies.
Okay. Now, the book mentions brain areas, self-referencing center and assessment center. Quick rundown.
Sure. Self-referencing center thinks about me, myself, and I, how things relate to you personally. Essential for self-awareness, but
can get stuck in negative self-talk.
yeah, if it's overactive, it interprets everything through a very personal, sometimes distorted lens, always asking, what about me?
And the assessment center?
That's more the rational evaluator. Logic. Big picture thinking. Like the wise old owl looking at the whole forest, not just the one tree you're bumping into.
Okay, subjective versus objective, kind of. How do they play with the wise advocate?
The idea is to use your wise advocate to call in the assessment center.
How?
When that self-referencing center is screaming, this disaster is all about you, the wise advocate steps in. It encourages the assessment center to ask, hang on, is that really true? What's the evidence? What's a broader view?
So you balance the personal feeling with rational thought, guided by your values.
Exactly. That helps you make choices based on wisdom, not just the immediate, often deceptive feeling.
Which leads back to that core idea.
Yeah.
Don't take these deceptive messages at face value. Why is that so hard, though? They feel so real.
They really do. Especially when that self-referencing center is running wild, they can feel like fundamental truths about you.
Like they are you.
Yes. Particularly if they're familiar, old patterns. The crucial step, the book says, is just recognizing them as brain activity, not reality. Not you.
Like seeing the pop-up ad for what is, just code trying to get a click, not a real emergency.
Perfect analogy. That recognition is the first crack in their power.
Now, the book also links this to early experiences, childhood stuff. How does that wire us up?
Well, our earliest needs are for connection, feeling safe, understood, good enough, caregiving, the book calls it.
And if we didn't get that, if our feelings were ignored,
our young brains might learn, okay, my feelings don't matter, or my needs are wrong. That gets wired in.
Leading to distress later, and maybe unhealthy ways of coping.
Often, yes. The brain tries to manage that early unmet need. Like Sarah, whose feelings were dismissed by her family, she learned maybe her needs weren't valid.
So those early lessons can become the source of later deceptive messages about our worth or our emotions.
They absolutely can.
The book mentions David Richo's 5 A's briefly: attention, acceptance, affection, appreciation, allowing. How do they fit?
Those are qualities we need for healthy connection. But these deceptive messages, they can block us from giving or receiving them.
Like Abby's constant worry might stop her from allowing her kids independence.
Exactly. Or Sarah's feeling of unworthiness might make it hard to accept affection, even when it's offered sincerely.
So the messages sabotage connection.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay, for someone new to this, feeling doubtful, the book mentions rational faith. What is that?
It's basically trusting the process even when your brain is screaming doubt. It means using the tools, the 4 steps we'll get into later, even if you think this won't work. It's faith that practice leads to improvement. Believing change is possible, despite the deceptive messages telling you it's not.
So, do the steps anyway, trust the process.
Got it.
Now, mindfulness comes up a lot. How does it help us see these messages as false?
Crucially, mindfulness isn't about denying the experience. The thought is there, the feeling is there, you are experiencing it.
Okay.
But mindfulness lets you see that the content of the message, what it's actually saying, is often false, not aligned with reality or your true values.
It creates space.
Yes, space between you and the thought. You observe it without judgment, recognizing it as just a mental event passing through, not an ultimate truth about you.
And the book warns about being lost in thought. How is that a problem here?
When we're just constantly churning thoughts, often run by that self-referencing center on autopilot.
Yeah.
We lose touch with the present moment, with our bodies. We don't even notice the deceptive messages creeping in and taking over.
It keeps us trapped in the brain's narrative.
Exactly. We can't step back and see the thoughts clearly because we're swimming in them, like background noise you don't realize is affecting you.
Okay. Anxiety often rides shotgun with these messages. The book says anxiety can be a signal. Signaling what?
It suggests anxiety can pop up when you're ignoring or minimizing your true feelings or needs.
Like an alarm bell?
Kind of. An internal alert saying, hey, something's off here. You're sidelining your authentic self. It also mentions physical reactions, fight or flight stuff. Yeah. It's the body saying, pay attention. So maybe anxiety isn't just something to squash, but a clue.
Interesting. And then there's the biological power of relabeling. UCLA research.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Research shows that simply putting a label on an emotion saying, this is anxiety or that's a craving, can actually calm down the brain's threat center.
The O center.
Slight chuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the O center. Naming the feeling seems to reduce its intensity somehow, take some of the charge out of it.
Just labeling it. Okay.
Yeah.
Another big point. Don't base actions on feelings alone. Why is that so risky with these messages?
Because feelings, especially these deceptive ones, are notoriously unreliable. They shift like the weather.
Right.
If you only act when you feel like it, guided by these often false signals, your behavior will be all over the place. You'll get frustrated.
Because the feelings aren't based on reality anyway.
Often not. So they pull you away from your actual goals. The book really pushes. It's not what you think or feel, it's what you do that counts.
Especially when facing these deceptive signals.
Absolutely. Take action based on your values, even if the feeling isn't there. That builds momentum.
Okay, this leads right into reframing. How did that work here?
Reframing is about changing your perception of the message's importance, seeing it for what it is.
Which is?
A false brain message. Not you, not reality, just brain activity. Especially when that self-referencing center is overactive and making it feel super personal and true.
So you shift from I am this thought to
There's my brain sending that old false message again. You recognize it as faulty wiring, not fundamental truth.
that simple shift. Sounds like it could unlock a lot.
It really can. It creates that essential distance. It lets you question the message, reduce its hold on you, and choose differently. It's a foundational shift.
Wow. Okay, this has been a fantastic first look at these deceptive brain messages. To sort of wrap up this part, what's the absolute core idea to hold on to?
The single most important thing is this. You are not your brain.
Simple but profound.
Absolutely. You have the power within you to recognize these deceptive messages, to see them as just brain noise often, not accurate reflections of you or the world.
And just grasping that difference,
Yeah.
that's the start.
That is the essential first step. It opens the door to taking back control, to aligning your life with who you truly want to be, with your real values.
It totally reframes the struggle, doesn't it? From being attacked by your own thoughts
Yeah.
to observing faulty signals.
Exactly.
So for you listening, maybe take a moment. Think about what deceptive brain messages show up in your life. How might seeing your brain and mind as separate change how you relate to them?
And remember, this understanding is just the beginning. There's a whole practical process for working with these messages, which we'll definitely explore more. But for now,
Yeah.
just sit with this thought. Now that you know you are not simply your brain, what are you going to choose to give your attention to?